I, a female teen, live with my dad. My mom passed a couple of years ago. My dad met Josie in a grief group or something like that, and they got married last year. Josie has 2 young boys, young grammar school age, and I hate living with them, to be honest. The older boy has really bad ADHD and is constantly accidentally breaking things, making messes, and has meltdowns over the smallest things. The younger one is somewhat similar, but not quite as bad. They both get into my room and take things or break them. I babysat them once when our parents were dating, and I'd rather not watch them again. Ever. Josie offered to pay me when they were dating, but I said no. Now that we all live together, she's been trying to make me deal with them more and more, usually while my dad's not home. My dad thinks I should just bond with them more, but he said that I don't have to babysit. Josie keeps trying to pull the just watch them for an hour while they go to the store, or loading me up with chores since I'm not watching the kids. I have chores already, so it's not like I'm doing nothing. I just want some time to myself to relax on the weekend. My dad doesn't see it happen, so he thinks I'm exaggerating. I have the smaller bedroom in the house we moved into, but when I was putting stuff away, it had a hatch in the side attic that nobody else knows about. I've started keeping stuff I don't want anyone else to get into in there, and it's big enough that I can spread out a blanket and some pillows and read or work on my laptop in peace. I had the idea to go in there and avoid Josie when my dad wasn't at home, and it worked. She called for me and came looking for me, but couldn't find me. My dad texted me and asked where I was, and I told him in my room and dropped my phone location for him to see. Josie still couldn't find me, but I slipped out before my dad came home and was lying on my bed with a book when he got there. Josie got big mad, asking where I'd been, and I said in my room. My dad showed her the location I sent when she said I was lying and had snuck out. Now they're arguing because Josie insists I wasn't in the house, and my dad thinks she's lying and taking it out on me because I wouldn't babysit. I do feel a little bad now because I am making Josie look kinda nuts, but I also don't want to babysit or spend my entire Saturday doing chores. Am I the idiot? LMAO, you're so not the idiot. This is golden. They're not your kids or siblings. You didn't ask for any of this to happen, and your free time and study time should be the first thing that was considered in this move. You might want to say something to Josie like, I've done my chores. I'm going to my room now. I have work to do, and I'd like to not be disturbed until X hours, rather than keep up the attic hideaway thing, because I can see that ending up being all your fault when it gets found out. OP, don't hide in the hidey hole again, please. It'll only get you in trouble. Set up a hidden camera with audio in your room on a day when you know your stepmother will act up. Aim it at the door to your room, and you can catch the boys if they attempt to mess with your stuff. Then ask your dad for coffee and show him the proof. You want to talk to him away from the house, so stepmother can't interfere with the conversation. Agree. The hidden room should be conserved for safe storage of items OP doesn't want stepbrothers to get into. Josie must realize OP isn't on call 24/7, or at all, to be her babysitting service. This is a tough spot for OP though. Study hard and focus on your future. Hopefully you can go to college soon, or whatever, and leave Josie to look after her kids. Update. To clarify, I'm not allowed to have a lock on my door, and I got in trouble for blocking it to keep the kids out. Josie flat out lies to my dad when I refuse to do what she wants while he's not here, and until now, he believed her, and I've gotten grounded for being disrespectful to her, even though the only thing I did was say no. I've tried having conversations with both my dad and Josie together, and my dad separately, and she denies everything. And my dad just thinks it's because I don't like the idea of step-family, so nobody listens to me. I think what I'm gonna do now, since he thinks she's lying and is wondering if she's been punishing me for not watching her kids, is keep my stuff hidden in the attic and not go stay in there for a while as some people suggested. I'm gonna try to record Josie, but I think I might talk to my coach at school too, because she's been noticing that I'm losing weight and gassing out too fast at practice, and asked if everything was okay the other day. Maybe she can talk to my dad about it, since the stress is affecting my training, or figure out who to get involved with that my dad would listen to. My daughter is nearly an adult, and I told her a few years ago that when she turns 21, I will give her her grandmother's pearls. She's my only daughter, and I think my mom would want her to have them. I didn't want to give them to her right away, though, because I was worried my ex would take them away from her. She was fine with waiting until 21 and very happy that I promised them to her. They are, however, still mine. My son's wife, then fiancé, asked to borrow the pearls for their wedding as her something borrowed. I agreed and loaned them to her. My daughter saw her wearing the pearls and asked when they returned from their honeymoon if it was the same set. Daughter-in-law confirmed that it was and said she had borrowed them for the ceremony. She returned them before they left for their honeymoon. My daughter asked me why I loaned them, and I said I thought my mom would like being part of her grandson's wedding. My daughter said she was hurt that I loaned out her pearls without asking. I told her they weren't hers yet, but they will be one day. They're mine, and I have a right to loan them out. She asked if she could have them now because she doesn't trust me with them anymore. I told her no, but I compromised and said I'd give them to her for her high school graduation next year when she'll be 18. She agreed to the compromise but is still miffed. Does promising to give someone a gift mean that I lose the rights to it before the gifting? I didn't think so, but what are your opinions? Not the idiot. Your mom would have liked to know that her pearls were worn at her grandson's wedding. Your daughter's being unreasonable. I would suggest holding off on giving the pearls to her until she's 25 or 30 to allow her to grow up some more. My daughter knows she'll inherit my house one day. She doesn't think of it as hers right now and knows I could decide to sell it someday. I'm not obligated to treat it as if it's her property for the rest of my life. I agree. Until the daughter understands what happened, she won't be able to properly honor them. Right now, they're just a fancy thing she has dibs on, rather than being an extension of her grandmother's honor and legacy. She must understand what those pearls represent before she can have them in her possession. She wouldn't take care of them. They'd be another thing. I really seem to have a different view from the majority. You are the idiot. Your daughter's looking at those pearls as an heirloom to be handed down in the direct line. You told her she was going to get them at 21. That really sounds like you're holding them in trust for her, particularly if you aren't wearing them yourself. And you said yourself that the only reason you held them was to keep them from being stolen by your ex. No, they're not hers yet, but from her point of view, they're being specially held for her. And now you've made them less of a direct connection from her grandmother to her mother to her. I see where you're coming from, that they're still legally belonging to you, but you should have asked your daughter and respected her opinion about it. Then you could have found something else to let your daughter-in-law wear. Agree. It's definitely possible that the daughter was, for instance, viewing the pearls as something she'd wear at her own wedding. That plan has less meaning to her since her sister-in-law got to wear them first. I wore my grandmother's emerald ring at my wedding, and I'm not sure if I'd have felt differently if a cousin had worn it before me. I really feel for the daughter. The sentimental value of jewelry like that can be high for some folks. I, 45 female, have 3 children. My eldest, Gia, is 28 years old. About 5 years ago, she moved about 90 minutes away to live with her boyfriend, Marco. They've since had 2 girls that are a preschooler and a toddler. My youngest daughter, Alexis, nearly adult, is mentally and physically disabled. While she is somewhat independent, she'll never live alone and requires much care. When my oldest granddaughter was born, Gia kept hinting that I should come to visit and help her. I did come down a couple of times, but Alexis's health was pretty poor at that point, so that had to be my focus. Eventually, Gia confided in me that Marco didn't help with the baby. I sympathized. As time went on, things didn't get better. I was surprised when Gia told me she was trying to conceive number 2. I asked if Marco was doing better, and she said no, but he really wanted to try for a boy. It's her life and her business, so I let it go. Sure enough, nothing changed when my youngest granddaughter was born. Around this time, my cousin passed. I was left as the guardian of her toddler daughter, Evelyn. Juggling Evelyn and Alexis is no easy task, and I'm also doing it alone. I have never asked my older kids for help and never would. This past year, Gia kept hinting that I should come down more. I have a couple of times, but usually say it'd be easier for her to come to me. Recently, Gia blew up at me, saying she has no help, and as her mother, I should. I said I was a little busy myself with one special needs child and a toddler who went through trauma. I'm always there emotionally, but I can't physically. She said that Marco was no help, and I said she knew what she was getting into this time around. It's not up to everyone else to support her. She got mad and told me I was insensitive. I was talking to my sister, and she said I had gone too far. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. She should redirect her anger toward her husband instead of you. Managing a toddler that just lost her mom and a teen with disabilities all on your own is amazing in itself. Hang in there. Don't feel like you need to be doing more. Geez, seriously? OP has at least as much on her plate as her daughter does, if not more. What in the world does she want from her? What is OP supposed to do with her responsibilities while she takes off to help her daughter? And if OP brings both children with her to her daughters, I don't see how that would be very helpful to her daughter. It would create a house full of chaos. She had a second child with a man she knew wasn't helpful, or frankly a decent father. I can't for the life of me wrap my brain around why she'd do that. But seriously, if he already didn't do squat with the first kid, why would she agree to a second? I know divorce and single parenthood suck, but if you're doing it all alone anyway, why not get rid of the dead weight instead of keeping him and adding a second kid to a crappy situation? Yep, Gia's a big girl who found out her partner was useless with the first child, then chose to have a second. You have a full plate. Her mess, and she needs to deal with it. She needs to give the lover boy a wake-up call, as in, man up, daddy. My wife, Lynn, 32, and I, 35 male, have been married for 7 years. While I grew up as an only child, my wife has one sister, Jamie, 23, who's a graduate student at a university. Jamie needed a place to stay after she and her long-term boyfriend, 6-ish years, broke up. My wife and I offered to let her stay in our guest house temporarily while she gets back on her feet. A week had passed when she started acting way out of character. She would go out overnight without telling my wife or me where she was or who she was with, which I'm aware that she's an adult, but it's super concerning when I leave for work in the morning and I have no idea where she is. I was just worried for her safety. I mentioned this to my wife, and she said that she talked to her. Over the span of the next 2 weeks, she had at least 5 different guys over, and I had a confrontation with one guy after I caught him leaving, and when I asked him who he was, he ignored me and ran to his car. When I asked Jamie about this, she laughed it off that he was just a friend, but insisted that he was harmless. I told her I didn't like her always bringing random guys to my home. Then she said that he wasn't a random guy, but that she would start spending the night at their places again instead. I told Jamie that she needed to calm down with the guys and said that she wouldn't fix her problems by having intimacy with a bunch of other dudes, as a joke. She got super mad at me and said that it wasn't any of my business. I said that if she wanted to continue staying with us for free, that she should be more considerate and that I was just trying to look out for her. Jamie told my wife about how I chased the guy down and that she feels like I'm just making up rules to shame her. Now we're not allowed to talk to each other, and all communication is going through my wife, who thinks that I was super out of line for what I said. The way I see it is that Jamie's a guest, living in our guest house for free, and all I really care about is that she is safe, my property's not damaged, and that she isn't bringing over sketchy guys. So I'm not asking for a lot, and I feel like this is being blown out of proportion, even if the joke was insensitive. So, am I the idiot? Geez, you are the idiot. Yes, it's your guest house, but it's also your wife's. Her sister is a guest and an adult, and that joke was not just insensitive, but also disgusting. She doesn't need you looking out for her past, letting her stay while she figures things out. That's the only thing you guys agreed to. Are you sure you're not jealous of the men she's seeing? Any of these kind of conversations are for her and her sister to have, not you. It's creepy that you thought it was an okay joke to make. Why do you know just how many guys are going in and out of the presumably separate guest house? Honestly, seems like you've been spying on her. And if that wasn't weird enough, you made it a point to comment on her intimate life and then tried to cover it up as a joke. You've just successfully ruined your relationship with your sister-in-law forever, and she's likely never going to trust you again. Even if she eventually heals and forgives you, you've just permanently broken something in your relationship with your wife as well. Hopefully your wife reflects on this and sees just how creepy her husband is. Definitely not the idiot. She is extremely rude for inviting guests over when she's a guest herself. This is not how you treat a guest situation at a family member's house, and many hosts consider it very rude in these situations. It is perfectly reasonable to expect an adult family member to abide by house rules, even guest house rules. It's disrespectful that she's using your house like a hotel instead of waiting with this until she finds a new flat to stay. Seriously, get her out. She's acting like an entitled child, and your wife is missing major red flags. It's your property. You get to know who's coming and going. My brother-in-law was driving us home, and my hands were starting to shake because I hadn't eaten. So I was going to eat one of the pastries I had brought, but he said I couldn't eat in his car. He was acting like his precious car would combust if it got crumbs in it, so I asked him to pull over because I needed to eat something. I decided to walk home while eating my pastry because I was annoyed at him. He kept asking me to get back in the car and claimed my husband would give him a hard time if he let me walk home, but I told him I didn't care, and I walked the entire way. So now my husband is mad at his brother, and my brother-in-law is blaming me because I refused to get back in the car. They had a huge argument when my husband first found out, and my husband also privately told me I should have just let his brother drive me home instead of being stubborn and walking. Every time we argue about it, my brother-in-law asks me if I'm going to start sulking again, which is really getting on my nerves. Am I the idiot? So I asked him to pull over because I needed to eat something. He complied and pulled over so you could eat. Then you acted like a toddler because he did exactly as you asked? You are the idiot, OP. Grow up. You literally had to eat a pastry that second. Why are we assuming you have diabetes? You were so desperate for energy, literally shaking, yet you were able to walk home to prove a point? If it wasn't that far of a walk, it would have been an even shorter drive. Surely you could have waited to stuff your face. I think you're a control freak. If his bringing up how you act gets on your nerves, then maybe don't act that way. And learn to be patient. Take better care of yourself so you're not about to faint while sitting in somebody else's car because you haven't eaten food all day. He doesn't want crumbs in his car. You should have offered to pay for the detailing if you made a mess. Considering how shaky you were, crumbs were likely. All in all, a huge idiot now for intentionally making two brothers mad at each other. You owe them both an apology.